In 2022, 16-year-old filmmaker named Kane Parsons uploaded a 9-minute horror short to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There was no theatrical campaign behind it, no established director was attached, no network pilot had been shot, and no studio had spent tens of millions of dollars trying to manufacture awareness.
Right.
The audience simply arrived first. 4 years later, Parsons directed the feature film adaptation of The Backrooms for A24, which went on to become a major global theatrical success.
That's a fascinating sequence of events.
It is, because Hollywood did not have to spend millions convincing people to care about this property. The audience was already there. And that sequence completely flips the traditional model of how entertainment franchises are built. So today, we were looking at how internet video platforms have quietly become Hollywood's primary audition room and, why creators, rather than studios, are suddenly controlling the initial stages of intellectual property development.
It's easy to look at that progression and describe it merely as another internet creator breaking into traditional media. But financially, something much more significant occurred. Hollywood was able to inspect the asset before committing feature film capital.
I see.
The visual language already existed, the concept had survived public exposure, a distinct audience demonstrated curiosity, and the creator proved he could execute the production. So Hollywood entered the equation only after several layers of financial and creative uncertainty had already been reduced.
Which changes the entire risk profile for a studio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are moving from a system where Hollywood had to manufacture awareness from zero to a system where the audition happens long before the first studio meeting even takes place.
Correct. And those pre-validated assets are becoming significantly more valuable because Hollywood itself has become far more selective.
Mm-hmm.
The economics of the streaming industry changed. Studios and platforms still deploy heavy capital, but the hurdle rate for speculative projects is much higher today than it was during the period when, sheer subscriber growth justified almost any content budget.
So the money's still there.
Yes. The capital did not disappear from the market. The tolerance for uncertainty changed. A project that comes attached to existing measurable demand now offers something a cold pitch simply cannot. It offers empirical evidence.
But we need to look closely at what that evidence actually proves.
Yeah.
Because not all internet fame translates into commercial leverage, right?
Right.
Traditional Hollywood development operates a bit like opening a massive, incredibly expensive restaurant without ever letting a single customer taste the menu.
Yeah.
A studio acquires the rights, commissions the scripts, builds the sets, hires the actors well before anyone knows if the public actually wants to consume the product.
Yeah.
The creator model reverses that entire sequence. It is more akin to starting with a food truck to perfect the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
You distribute something small, observe the audience reaction, improve the product, and build a dedicated community before ever approaching larger capital.
That's a good way to frame it.
But that leaves a major question. Does 1 million people stopping to look at a food truck actually mean they're going to pay for a sit-down meal? Like, does sheer virality guarantee a return on box office capital?
That is the critical distinction we have to make. Internet proof is not the same thing as Hollywood proof.
Okay.
A highly viewed video proves that people will click on a thumbnail. Repeat viewing can indicate that the concept has some staying power. But neither of those metrics guarantees that audiences will buy a movie ticket, subscribe to a separate premium platform, or support a multi-year franchise. The underlying mechanics of validation require us to look at 3 distinct tiers of proof.
3 tiers.
Yes, the first tier is proof of attention. Can you make somebody stop scrolling and watch?
Right.
Most viral success stops right there. It is a commodity.
Yeah, just fleeting attention.
Precisely. The second tier is proof of format. Can the initial idea support recurring episodes, distinct characters, predictable production cycles, or a recognizable universe?
And the third tier would be where the actual commercial viability is proven.
That is correct. The third tier is proof of paid conversion. Will the audience actually spend money? Will those viewers purchase a theater ticket, join a competing streaming platform, buy physical merchandise, or pay to attend a live event?
I see.
Far fewer digital properties ever prove all 3 of those tiers. So, calling a video platform an audition room only captures a fraction of the utility. A traditional audition evaluates talent. This new system evaluates talent, packaging, format durability, audience formation, retention, and the foundational elements of intellectual property.
Those are entirely different asset classes.
They are.
We can look at the amazing digital circus as a precise case study for these mechanics. It began as an independently produced animation distributed directly to viewers online. The audience grew to a massive scale before any traditional streaming platform entered the picture.
Right.
Most importantly, the production company retained control of the underlying creative system. Netflix later licensed the series, while the original platform remained central to the release model.
And that structure is fundamentally different from walking into a network office with an undeveloped concept and surrendering control before the audience even exists.
Yeah.
In this case, the asset existed first. The demand existed first. The creator company had already demonstrated that the property functioned as a business. This introduces a distinction that becomes highly valuable as these creator businesses mature. Content ownership and audience ownership are not the same asset.
Can you clarify that?
Sure. A major studio can own a film while relying entirely on third-party theaters or streaming platforms to reach the end consumer. A creator, however, can own a channel, a recurring format, and a direct audience relationship without needing to own a global theatrical network.
Okay, I see.
When the creator controls both the intellectual property and the repeated access to viewers, the negotiation starts from a very different baseline.
Because the creator's income statement also looks entirely different before institutional capital arrives. They might have advertising revenue, direct sponsorships, paid memberships, merchandise sales, licensing, and consumer products already generating steady cash flow. The ability to simply reject bad capital is itself a massive source of bargaining power.
Yes, it is.
But wait, that introduces a structural contradiction. If a creator has already proven all three tiers of demand and they have the cash flow to walk away from a bad deal, it seems like they hold all the leverage. However, moving to Hollywood-scale production introduces a massive new set of risks. A 10-person digital studio and a 500-person premium production are fundamentally different industrial systems.
There are entirely different operating environments. Large premium productions bring multi-party insurance requirements, complex rights clearance, production legal oversight, rigorous safety procedures, large-scale physical sets, massive crews, and specific labor agreements.
That's a lot of overhead.
It is. They introduce international logistics and significant completion risk. A creator can be exceptionally efficient at independent internet production and suddenly discover that Hollywood-scale spectacle carries Hollywood-scale costs, which erode the very margins that made their independent business so profitable.
That brings up a specific reality we have to address regarding ambition and scale. Because if having this massive built-in audience is such a superpower, why did someone like Mr. Beast, who has one of the largest direct audiences on Earth, publicly state he lost tens of millions of dollars making Beast games for Amazon?
That situation illustrates the precise warning regarding capital and scale. Amazon supplied institutional capital and global distribution infrastructure, and the resulting program became one of Prime Video's largest unscripted launches.
Right.
The creator arrived with the audience already de-risked for the platform. But the creator still absorbed meaningful production downside. Audience leverage does not eliminate institutional production costs. It may actually encourage the creator to absorb more of those costs in order to maintain a specific creative vision. This is not the old Hollywood model simply transplanted onto internet talent. A hit property can still become a poor financial project for the creator if they absorb costs that rise faster than their share of the value created.
So the ultimate capital trap for a creator is paying for years of experimentation to prove a format. Building the audience, establishing the characters, creating the merchandising potential, and then surrendering the most durable long-term rights for a temporary large upfront check.
Well, selling those rights may be a rational financial decision if the studio can genuinely create far more value with the IP than the creator could independently.
Okay.
But the correct financial comparison is not a big check versus zero. The correct comparison is a large upfront payment versus the future cash flows, the ownership stake, and the optionality being surrendered. Before celebrating any traditional studio agreement, the creator must calculate what they actually still own after the deal closes.
Right.
If they carry the riskiest part of early development and then give away the longest duration asset, they have severely mispriced their own leverage.
So if taking the big Hollywood check can actually be a trap that strips you of your IP, how does a creator actually navigate this ecosystem?
Yeah.
What exactly does a studio want to buy, if not just a massive subscriber count?
The scarce asset is not the raw number of followers. The scarce asset is transferability.
Transferability.
Yes. Can the property's success survive when the distribution conditions change? A digital viewer is accustomed to free access, immediate distribution, and algorithmic recommendation. A streaming viewer faces a deliberate subscription wall.
Yeah.
A cinema audience has to make an active individual purchase and physically travel to a location. So an audience relationship built in one frictionless environment can severely weaken when moved into a high-friction environment.
And the creator's own personality can become a significant bottleneck to that transferability, right?
Yes.
Because some creator businesses are entirely inseparable from the person at the center of the camera. That structure can be extremely profitable in the short term, but it severely limits scalability. You know, if the founder must personally appear in every single episode, approve every minor concept, and carry every corporate sponsorship relationship, the asset behaves very differently from a fictional universe or a repeatable format.
That is correct. Buyers do not merely want to acquire followers. They want to acquire assets that can predictably keep producing value independent of one human being's daily schedule.
It is essentially the difference between a beloved local chef and a fast food franchise. If you run a pure personality-driven channel, you are the local chef. The food is incredible, the dining room is packed every single night, but the business cannot be cloned. You must physically be in the kitchen for the restaurant to generate revenue. A format-driven channel operates more like a fast food franchise. The recipe works, the branding works, and the margins are predictable no matter who is working the grill on a given Tuesday. Institutional buyers want the franchise model. We see this evolution clearly with a property like Hot Ones.
Yes.
First, we feast-built it into much more than a successful interview clip. It became a repeatable format, a recognizable brand, a structured production operation, and a broad commercial ecosystem. So when that parent company changed hands, the buyer was not paying for a single viral episode or a specific host's popularity. They were buying an industrial asset capable of predictably producing the next episode.
And Mark Rober represents a different strategic path, arriving at the exact same principle.
Okay.
His presence expanded well beyond standard videos into physical consumer products, educational platforms, live entertainment, and a broader operating business long before television-scale partnerships arrived. He did not show up as an unknown performer waiting for a studio executive to invent a format around him. He already operated a comprehensive system. The Sidemen provide another distinct variation. They built their own self-contained entertainment ecosystem, then developed the property inside as a creator-native reality format before that specific concept expanded into premium streaming distribution.
I see.
The strongest crossover asset is a repeatable operating system attached to existing popularity. That means a distinct format, developed characters, scalable production capability, high audience trust, and proven commercial extensions.
And technology is continually making it cheaper to reach that operational stage. Digital camera sensors improved, professional editing software became widely accessible, virtual production techniques lowered physical set barriers, and automated audio dubbing makes rapid international distribution viable for small teams. But falling production costs do not eliminate the hardest variables in the equation: taste, writing, operational leadership, complex rights management, physical safety, and the managerial ability to turn one successful idea into a repeatable corporate structure. As the sheer act of production and distribution becomes cheaper, a different combination of elements becomes valuable. Trusted attention plus scalable intellectual property. That is the exact asset a major studio cannot simply manufacture instantly, even with an unlimited budget.
However, we must note that open digital distribution does not mean neutral distribution.
Right.
A creator may own the underlying intellectual property and still remain heavily dependent on a distribution platform they do not control. Recommendation systems, search algorithms, monetization rules, advertising infrastructure, and even basic account access all represent significant operational dependencies. The traditional studio executive gatekeeper can simply be replaced by an algorithmic gatekeeper.
Which is where most analysis of this industry stops. The market tends to celebrate the moment a creator transitions into a traditional studio deal as the ultimate victory. But the economic reality goes much deeper than the initial press release, because the next stage of scale changes the story again.
Hollywood is no longer the only institution trying to purchase creator attention. The talent market has effectively become a platform market. The creator economy is no longer a peripheral side business attached to traditional entertainment. YouTube has distributed well over $100 billion to creators, artists, and media companies across recent years. Its ecosystem supports professional editors, staff writers, line producers, animators, dedicated researchers, corporate sales teams, software engineers, and complex merchandise operations. The word creator increasingly serves to hide what is, structurally, a genuine media company.
And because these top creators are building studio-level operating systems, they are now directly competing for the exact same real estate as traditional Hollywood. Viewing internet video on physical television sets in the living room is becoming central to the platform's metrics. For many of the largest digital channels, the television screen is already the single most important viewing device for their audience.
Right.
That physical reality weakens the old distinction between internet video and premium television.
A creator-produced documentary, a high-end animation series, or a reality entertainment format can now compete on the exact same physical screen as Netflix, Disney, broadcast television, or a major studio theatrical release.
Yeah.
The end viewer does not care which corporate category financed the production. This convergence forces premium platforms to do complex customer acquisition underwriting.
I want to clarify that term. When we say customer acquisition underwriting, we're talking about a platform like Netflix trying to calculate an exact conversion rate. Like, if a creator has 20 million loyal viewers on a free digital platform, a paid streaming platform does not automatically receive 20 million new subscribers by signing that creator.
Precisely. The platform has to model the friction. Some of those viewers already subscribe to the premium service. Some will refuse to move regardless of the content. Some enjoy the free algorithmic channel, but lack the disposable income to pay for another subscription service. Some enjoy the creator's daily vlogs, but have no interest in their highly produced reality format. The platform has to mathematically estimate what specific portion of the existing free audience can actually be transferred across the paywall. It is customer acquisition underwriting disguised as traditional talent acquisition.
And the creator has to run the exact reverse calculation. If I am a creator with massive leverage, strong cash flow, and a direct relationship with my audience, why would I lock myself exclusively behind a single corporate paywall? Moving premium content behind another platform's wall certainly brings large-scale financing and broader mainstream distribution.
Yeah.
But it permanently alters the direct relationship. You know, the release cadence changes to match the platform's schedule. The data analytics become opaque, community interaction may be severely restricted, and future distribution windows can become locked up for years.
Yeah.
So the optimal creator strategy appears to be selective rather than exclusive. You might license one specific format to a streamer. You might co-finance a feature film. But you keep the core daily channel open, you retain the physical merchandise rights, and above all, you preserve the underlying intellectual property.
Mature media companies operate in exactly that manner. They do not ask which single corporate ecosystem they belong to. They ask what specific asset the counterparty is providing in a given transaction. Is it capital?
Yeah.
Is it physical distribution? Specialized production expertise? Global theatrical reach? Premium advertising sales? Retail placement? International licensing. The creator begins behaving less like talent looking for employment and more like a holding company strategically allocating rights. Global distribution data strengthens that negotiating position. Modern localization tools reduce language friction, and real-time audience data reveals exactly where a property is gaining traction globally, long before traditional distributors begin negotiating market-by-market marketing campaigns. Hollywood historically needed its own distribution network just to learn whether a property traveled well. Creators can increasingly learn that data much earlier in the cycle.
But there is a downside to all this empirical evidence, isn't there? Because the more Hollywood relies on proven demand, the easier it becomes to exclusively finance what already resembles past success.
Yes.
Heavy reliance on data can certainly eliminate bad bets, but it can also eliminate strange, highly original bets. An unfamiliar concept without an existing fandom can look financially inferior on a spreadsheet compared to a proven digital property, even if its long-run theatrical upside might be vastly greater.
Traditional studio gatekeepers could certainly be conservative in their greenlighting decisions. But algorithms and financial models can be equally conservative. If major studios rely too heavily on creator platforms to discover proven ideas, they can systematically weaken their own internal capacity to originate new concepts.
I see.
Cutting speculative development budgets improves short-term capital efficiency, but it surrenders the long-term option value of discovering the next massive franchise before the open market has already priced it. A studio that finances only proven demand eventually just becomes a buyer of mature assets created elsewhere.
And proven, mature assets are rarely cheap.
Correct. Somebody still has to fund creative uncertainty in the initial stages. That remains one of Hollywood's legitimate structural functions.
Gluing all of these mechanics together, what is the ultimate structural fate of traditional Hollywood in this new ecosystem? The long-term base case is not internet creators entirely replacing Hollywood studios. It is severe specialization. Open digital platforms become stronger at initial discovery, rapid experimentation, and global community formation. Creator companies finance more of the early proof-of-concept stage. Studios and premium streamers become much more selective about deploying large-scale production and distribution budgets. So when those two systems finally meet, the creator arrives with significantly more leverage and evidence than traditional talent historically possessed.
The strongest creators arrive at the table with viable alternatives. They have the capability to remain independent, to license their formats rather than sell them outright, to raise outside institutional capital directly, to build their own consumer products, to operate paid memberships, or to distribute globally on their own terms.
Yeah.
That optionality fundamentally changes bargaining power. The creator who absolutely needs Hollywood capital has one specific negotiating position. The creator who can remain highly profitable without Hollywood capital has an entirely different position. Representation and talent agencies face a similar industrial transition. Their core value cannot simply be providing access to a studio executive because the creators already possess public distribution. Representation only becomes valuable when it improves complex contract structure, secures non-dilutive financing, manages long-term rights, builds corporate partnerships, and executes broader business development. The traditional gatekeeper loses margin. The strategic architect gains it.
At the macro level, the platforms themselves may gain the broadest structural power. YouTube controls algorithmic discovery. Netflix controls direct access to its massive subscriber base. Amazon combines premium streaming, advertising, physical commerce, and cloud infrastructure.
Yes.
Each of these platforms aggressively wants top creators because successful creators bring loyal audiences without requiring the platform to finance the costly process of building those audiences from zero. At the very top end of the market, creators themselves have become the scarce assets.
But creators must maintain a strict focus on exactly what made them scarce in the first place. It was not a traditional Hollywood producer credit. It was not a premium streaming platform's logo on their poster.
Right.
The scarce asset was the direct, unmediated audience relationship. Lose that direct connection, and the financial leverage disappears very quickly. Preserve that relationship while methodically building scalable intellectual property around it, and the creator company becomes much harder for any institution to replace.
Yeah.
The emerging pipeline essentially reverses the old industrial order. Talent publishes a concept, the audience forms organically, data reveals the scale of the demand, a corporate structure develops around the relationship, and only then does institutional capital arrive. Hollywood enters significantly later in the risk curve, and precisely because it enters later, it may have to pay a much higher premium for control.
That dynamic does not make Hollywood obsolete, though. Global feature films and premium television series still require capabilities that most individual creator companies cannot efficiently reproduce on their own. We are talking about large-scale financing facilities, complex physical production management, global legal systems, international theatrical distribution, established exhibitor relationships, and organized labor coordination.
Right.
Hollywood remains incredibly valuable when it supplies operational capabilities, rather than merely acting as a toll booth for permission. Permission used to be one of the industry's most valuable assets. For decades, a relatively small number of institutions unilaterally decided who reached mass distribution. That scarcity of distribution is structurally weaker now.
It is.
The digital audience can effectively greenlight the first version of a property. Hollywood still decides whether it wants to finance the massive scaled-up second version. That capital allocation remains important, but it is a much narrower monopoly on validation than the industry once possessed.
The underlying economics have permanently changed. Creators are increasingly expected to prove commercial demand before institutional capital arrives. The strongest operators preserve their IP ownership while doing it. And once that definitive proof exists, Hollywood is no longer negotiating with an applicant who has nothing to lose. It is negotiating with an established asset.
Yeah.
The structural question for the next decade is not simply how many internet creators become traditional movie stars. It is how much of the underlying audience, the intellectual property, and the future cash flows those creators manage to control after larger institutional capital enters the capitalization table.
If you want more investigations into how technology, media, capital, and ownership reshape global business, subscribe to the Unlayered Global. We follow the deal past the announcement into who financed the risk, who owns the asset, who captures the economics, and where bargaining power moves next. Because the next generation of Hollywood talent may already have an audience before Hollywood knows their name. And once creators can prove demand, build intellectual property, and finance more of the development process themselves, the audition becomes two-sided. Hollywood gets to decide whether the creator is worth financing, but the creator gets to decide whether Hollywood is worth the ownership they would have to give up. Hearing all these mechanics laid out, it leaves me with one final thought to consider. Right now, creators are desperately trying to build these repeatable, highly structured systems and formats so they do not have to be on camera constantly. They're trying to solve the personality bottleneck. But as artificial intelligence and synthetic media inevitably drive the marginal cost of producing complex formats and visual spectacle down to absolute zero, we have to ask what happens next. If anyone can generate a high-quality production system with a few keystrokes, the only scarce, unreplicable asset left in the market might just be messy, authentic human personality, the exact thing these creators are currently trying to scale away from.